Our program tonight. I'd like to encourage the youngsters who are still moving around to find a chair, be seated, and the people backstage to be ready. The month of March is a very important month for us, for this people, being it was the month in which that Grandpa Barlow was born. And the Barlow University has the program, and Barlow University was named after Grandpa Barlow. And so we're honored to do this program in his name. And one of his favorite mottos was, "Keep sweet." And Uncle Rulon has told us this many times recently, as Uncle Roy did also. So this is the theme for our program tonight. We'll start off first with a word of prayer. We're thankful to have Uncle Rulon with us, of course, and Uncle Fred and Uncle Lewis and Uncle Dan and each of you. We'd like to ask James Barlow if he'd come offer a word of prayer for us this morning, or this evening. Our Father in heaven, we come before you this night in prayer, and we thank you for the opportunity to gather together and to be entertained. And we pray that you'll be pleased with our activities and with the performance here tonight. We thank you for the privilege of living and working under the direction of your prophet. We thank you for his presence here tonight. And we pray that you'll help us to get and keep the Spirit of the Lord with us this time, and we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
For all of you joining us tonight, this is KCCA 107.1 FM, Colorado City, Arizona, bringing you tonight the March program sponsored by Barlow University. And here is your MC, Arthur Barlow.
I'd like to mention before we go on with our program just several events that are quite important in the month of March, other than the birth of our prophet John Y. Barlow. Aunt Ann was born in the month of March, and Charles F. Zitting, Aunt Mill, Joseph Musser, Charles Cook was born this month. He's one of the regents of the Barlow University. And also, this is the month that Warren Marshall Johnson died in 1902. Uncle Roy's father, and also Aunt May Bateman, Aunt Ida, Leslie Broadbent, Aunt Zavenda, and Joseph Musser. This is the month that Uncle Dwayne moved down from Idaho with his dairy herd and started the Meadowayne Dairy. Also the first month in 1963 when the Twin City Courier put out their first publication. The 44 raid was on the 7th of this month, and on the 8th of this month, Uncle Virgil, Thurl Dockstader, and Lawrence Stubbs were taken to prison in Tucson. On the 9th of this month, 2 years later, they returned back to us after their prison term. The group song will be "Up Awake, Ye Defenders of Zion." Next, we'll have Arden Barlow come up and give us a brief history of Barlow University.
Barlow University was founded in the year of 1978 when my father and his married sons organized it and were the first trustees or incorporators. And it sat dormant for about 13 years till 1990, at which time my father's sons resigned and new regents and new officers were appointed. Full-time classes began September 24th, 1990. I'd like to compare the university to several other universities. The University of Nauvoo was founded around a triangle of basics, including the arts, the sciences, and the learned professions, with a religious core, so that each student had to take classes from each one of those areas. And we've built the Barlow University around that principle. The University of Utah had an initial enrollment of 25 students and moved around approximately 14 times. And it was 36 years before they issued a bachelor's degree. Brigham Young University was declared a university in 1903 with 37 college students and 825 high school students. Northern Arizona University started with only 23 students, but Barlow University started in 1990 with over 200 students. The startup was accomplished with funds that were donated from the elders, which each donated $250, and also several widowed ladies contributed. We've been operating on donations from time and effort in building the technology building, and the instructors have been donating their time, and the secretaries and the office help and the support people. The donations of equipment and materials are used in computer construction, in the construction, also in the computer classes. On the back of your program, or on page 4 of the Desert Rose, you'll find a list of people who have helped. I'm sure this is not a complete list, but it gives you an idea of how many people are involved and wanting to help. Some of the classes that we have offered have been quite interesting. We started with the core classes of the basics like math and English and then accounting. But then we've had some very interesting other classes, some fulfillment classes, like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which has been taught by Uncle Joe. And we've had computer classes like WordPerfect and DBase and computer-assisted drafting. Martha Jessup has taught a prenatal class, and Louis and Karen have taught a parenting class, and we've had neurological development classes. We've had the band, we've had Edith's folk singers and Kathy's chorus, and long hair care, and we've even had a sewing class at Danco. We've had classes on understanding government. We have a journalism class which has put out the Desert Rose. We've also established a book distribution center, which is the source of textbooks for students and also a source of books for the homeschoolers. We also distributed quite a few of the foundation books of our religion. The seminary and devotional classes are closely associated with the university, and all religion classes are taught free. The stimulus and the motivation to begin the university into a full-time class schedule was basically Uncle Dan Barlow and Uncle Fred. And I'd like to express my appreciation for all others who have contributed, and of course thanks to our dear prophet Uncle Rulin. We'd also like to thank Uncle Rulin for the use of this facility, the LSJ Meeting House. Thank you.
Next on our program, it says, "Keep sweet children." I think you could say, "Keep sweet adults," too. Some of us have got a new definition of that meaning in working with as many people as we have here. Well, tonight on our program, we'll be working with near 500 people between the seminary and the devotional and the children and staff and personnel here on this program. So we appreciate you bearing with us. "Keep Sweet" by the Children. As Arden's mentioned, Uncle Dan has been very instrumental and very helpful in starting the university and pushing it forward and always being there and supporting it even when things get looking a little grim at times. We'd like to ask Uncle Dan to come up and tell us a little bit about the early life of Grandpa John Y. Barlow.
John Y. Barlow, our prophet and leader for many years, was born on March the 4th, 1874. That was just 3 years before the passing of President Brigham Young. As you know, this university is named after him and in his honor. President Barlow was a humble and a very unassuming man. He had very little formal education, and I think he only went to the 3rd or the 4th grade in actual schooling. But he was a man that was very well self-taught. When he was a young man, he was called on a mission to West Virginia. He was only 19 years old, and there he became one of the best scriptorians, for he loved to read the scriptures. And oft times, in his later years, when anyone would come to ask him a question, he would say, "Well, let's see what the Lord has to say about that." Brother Barlow was a man of few words. He didn't talk long, but he had quite a few one-liners that carried through all the ages. Of course, one of his most famous ones was, "Keep sweet." Another statement that he made to some of us boys was, "Don't be thin-skinned." And at one time he told his sons, when the going looked a little bit rough, he said, "Son, you know no retreat. These are the kind of things that Grandpa Barlow taught. And probably the most important message that we have that ever come through Grandpa Barlow, John Y. Barlow, the prophet, was a command of God to go and tell the people to get the Spirit of God and keep it. And I remember him well saying, "The Lord will take care of his servants. And if you want to obtain a blessing, you have to live the law pertaining to it." It's one thing to enter into the law, and it's another thing to abide by it. Then he would say, nothing will satisfy the immortal soul except eternal salvation. Dad was a man that could communicate with his sons the way I recall him. A man that you could talk to about anything. I remember growing up, I would talk to him about my work, about the work that was going on, and I even remember talking to him about girls. He would communicate and talk with us so that he knew exactly how we felt, and he could tell in a few words what was going on inside of us. Through talks like these, he was able to gain an understanding of what type of a person we were. This recalls to my mind another of Dad's sayings when he said, "You know, son, authority can be conferred, but godliness must be acquired." Dad had a sense of humor. It was interesting. It was his humor. And he told me about a story one time when he was a young man. He said he was breaking a bronco, and it was bucking and carrying on, and it got its foot up in the stirrup as it was kicking and bucking, and then got his foot in the stirrup of his saddle, and he said, "Well, if you're getting on, I'm getting off." Brother Barlow was a man of great courage. He was a man who stood up in a time when people said these principles could not be lived. It was impossible, and there was no way to live them. He lived in a time when men were persecuted if they were associated with the principles of the gospel, and he had the kind of raw courage it took to stand in the face of obstacles. I remember him telling me the story about an experience where there was a group of people who were set to tar and feather him. But Dad was not a man to flinch, and he walked straight through them without wavering, and he never flinched in any way. I remember Dad saying, "You can't be a good leader until you've learned to be a good follower, and no matter what people say about God's laws, they're still true." And he often reminded, we have nothing else to do but go straight forward. Dad was sent to the old Sugar House prison when he was 70 years old. It was very difficult and very hard on him, but he never complained. And he wasn't afraid to acknowledge his family. He always, when others many times were hiding up their family, Dad was the kind of a man that always said, "This is my son," when we were along with him. I believe one of the best things that he ever said to me, and has meant the most, was he said, "Stick by Uncle Roy, for he will teach you the way." And I believe it stands true today that those who stick by one prophet will stick by another and be his support. Another of Dad's famous sayings, "If you criticize the criticizers, you will lose the Spirit of God." We honor the memory of a great prophet leader, John Y. Barlow.
didn't ever have the opportunity of knowing my grandfather, Grandpa Barlow. I was less than 1 year old at the time that he died. But I imagine from what I knew of Uncle Roy that I got acquainted with my grandfather. Uncle Roy's sense of humor was a lot like Grandpa Barlow's, I imagine. One of his quotes he used to say was that, talking about how good he used to shoot when he was a kid, he says, "The older I get, the better shot I was when I was a kid." And one of the guys told me one, he said the other day, he said, talking about the size of pants that he wore, he says, "I actually wear a 32, but I bought a 34, and they felt so good that I got a 36. That's the style of humor that's always fun, and no one is ever the brunt of the joke. And that's quite a talent to be able to do that and still have a good sense of humor. We're having the classes, some of the classes at the Barlow University do a short number on our program tonight. The devotional class that meets at 7:30 in the morning has prepared a number for us. Words written by Richard Allred, called Uncle Roy Has Taught Us. Grandpa Barlow told a story about Father Abraham and his family. And one evening they had an older gentleman that came to stay at their house. There was a traveler passing through. And Father Abraham was going to kneel down for prayers and asked him to join him, and the old man wouldn't kneel down with him. And so Father Abraham asked him to leave. And after this man had left, then the Lord came and asked Abraham where that old man was. And Father Abraham says, well, he wouldn't kneel down to prayers with us, and so we asked him to leave. And the Lord says, well, I've tolerated that old man for 75 years. Can't you tolerate him for one night? And the story is found in Uncle Roy's sermons, one of the first or second sermon in Volume 1. And the song, Think Gently of the Erring One, was the song that was referred to by Grandpa Barlow. And we're going to have that sung by some of Grandpa Barlow's grandsons and a few others.
Think gently of the erring one. Oh, let us not forget, however darkly stained by sin, he is our brother yet. Heir of the same inheritance, child of the self-same God. He hath but stumbled in the path we have in weakness trod. Speak gently to the erring ones, we yet may lead them back with holy words and tones of love from misery's thorny track. Forget not, brother, thou hast sinned, and sinful yet mayst be. Deal gently with the erring heart, as God has dealt with thee.
When we were practicing that song, it says, this says grandsons of John Y. Barlow. And J.L. says, well, I'm one of his grandsons. It reminded me of the time when Marion Hammond had asked all the people to stand up in church who were the descendants of John Y. Barlow. Uncle Roy was the first one on his feet. And so we realized that you can easily be a son or a grandson of the prophet through the spirit and the attitude that we have. The children have prepared a short song and slides on the prophets. We'll have that next. the fire class is prepared to number the Fireman's Prayer.
Fireman's Prayer. When I'm called to duty, God, whenever flames may rage, give me strength to save some life, whatever be its age. Help me embrace a little child before it is too late, or save an older person from the horror of that fate. Enable me to be alert and hear the weakest shout, and quickly and efficiently to put the fire out. I want to fill my calling and give the best in me, to guard my every neighbor and to protect his property. And if, according to my fate, I am to lose my life, please bless with your protecting hand my children and my wife.
You're listening to KCCA FM 107.1.
If you desire to know what makes a man tick, Barlow University has the bookstore for you, has the book for you. As a man thinketh. But if you want an answer to an even more baffling mystery, come in and get As a Woman Thinketh. We also offer literature on religion, history, and university text. Barlow University Bookstore. We sell books worth reading.
And now, back to your program.
Barlow University is very proud to announce that we have one graduate student, and we're very proud of this graduate student. He's going to come give us a recitation.
I think I'm an ornery graduate student. Something like that. History testifies and tradition verifies the testimony that one Mary was at one time in possession of a youthful member of the genus Ovis, commonly referred to as sheep, whose excellence of blood and neatness of manner rendered his or her, as the case may be, external fringe as beautifully translucently white as the congealed aqueous fluid which occasionally presents insurmountable barriers to railroad travel in the Sierras, commonly referred to as the driven snow. And it is stated in the most authentic manner, page 1 and 2 of volume 1 by Nursery Rhymes by Mother Goose, that nowhere did the charming little lady, probably a Colorado City or Hilldale girl, perambulate, but that the aforementioned diminutive quadrupedal vertebrate did with alacrity approximate thither. Now, in case you didn't understand what I said, Mary had a diminutive sheep, regarding whose cuticular the fluff exterior was white and kinked in each particular. On each occasion when the lass was seen perambulating, the little quadruped likewise was there, a-gallivating. One day it did accompany her to the knowledge dispensary, which to every rule and precedent was recklessly contrary. Immediately whereupon the pedagogue superior, exasperated, did eject the lamb from the interior. Then Mary, on beholding such performance arbitrary, suffused her eyes with saline drops from glands called lacrimary. And all the pupils grew thereat tumultuously hilarious, and speculated on the case with wild conjectures various. What makes the Lamb love Mary so? The scholars asked the teacher. He paused a moment, then he tried to diagnose the creature. O pecus amorum, Mary habet omnia temporum. Thanks, teacher dear, the scholars cried, and awe crept darkly o'er 'em. Now, in case you didn't understand, if there's any Chinese people here, this is what we said. Was gal named Moll have lamb, fleece ollie samey white snow. Every place Moll gal walkie baba hoppy long too. And if you're from Ireland, this is the way it said. Begory, Mary had a little shape, and it was white entirely. And everywhere that Mary would stir her stumps, the shape would follow her completely. Now, if you're from Germany, you'd probably hear it like this. Mary have got in little shape, mit hair just like some wool. And every times what Mary did wend out, that shape did wend also out mit Mary. One day it did went mit Mary to the schoolhouse, which was opposition of the rules of the schoolmaster. Also which it did cause the children to smile out loud when they did saw those lambs mit their inside of the schoolhouse out. And so also that schoolmaster did kick the lambs quick out. Likewise that chef did fool around mit their outside of the schoolhouse. Until Mary did come also from the schoolhouse out, and then also that lambs did run the right away quick to Mary, and did laid his head on Mary's arm like he would say, I don't was scared, Mary would keep me from trouble now. What was the reason about it, of this lambs and Mary, those children did ask it that schoolmaster? Well, don't you know that Mary loved the lambs already? That schoolmaster did said.
I want to guarantee you he earned that certificate. It wasn't honorary, or even ornery. He closed on a German note there, and that's just right for our next part on the program. Brother Carl G. Mazer was the first teacher and the principal of the Brigham Young Academy, which later became known as the Brigham Young University in Provo. He was a very cultured, educated, and refined person. He came from a kind of a high society family, you might say, in Germany, and he was converted in the 1850s. Him and his wife emigrated to America. He was a very accurate and punctual man. He was always on time, would not tolerate starting class 1 minute late or going 1 minute over. And he also said that it was teaching the children bad manners to stop the class 1 minute before time to end the class. So this is the type of a person that Carl G. Mazer was. He had very piercing eyes and was very precise in his motion and step, and he was kind of like a Swiss watch or clock, you might say. Every morning he had the students at the Brigham Young University set their watches by the big clock in the main hall. They called it the normal room. I don't know if we have one of those here. Anyway, the church history class will give us just a small incident in the life of Carl G. Mazer. He also had a very good ability to turn the tables when there's a joke played on him. They'll show that to us now.
it. He's never been late for seminary before. Am I late? No, you're not late.
I think the matter is hurting or something?
I don't know.
Maybe he's getting married.
Let's go see if he's coming. He's not coming.
Where could he be? I don't know. Maybe he got a flat tire or something. Stuck in the mud.
Yeah, it just rained. Maybe he's stuck.
Hey, I have an idea. Come here.
Do you think we have enough time?
Yeah.
This is gonna be good. I can't wait to see his expression.
I'm kind of scared.
Did you get done with your report? No.
I don't know. I never see a Holstein donkey. But that is right, that is right. Whenever I cannot be here, choose the greatest one among you to take charge.
In case you didn't hear in the back, he said, choose the greatest one among you to take charge whenever I'm not here. So, a little more on the serious side with Brother Mazer. When he went to his assignment in the Brigham Young University, he went to Brigham Young and asked for some advice. And to the prophet, and he says, what should I do? What do you want me to teach? And asked him for his input on it. And this is the statement that Brigham Young made. He says, don't teach the multiplication tables or the alphabet without the Spirit of God. That's all. Thank you. Goodbye. That was the height, the amount of the instruction that he gave him. Brother Mazer did a very good job. One of the statements he made was, he says he would rather trust his child to a serpent than to an unbelieving teacher, a teacher that didn't believe in God. He also said, what can be done by students and the teacher shouldn't do. So I just wanted my students to be sure and hear that too. So the first good morning should always be to your Heavenly Father. It gives you just a little touch in the life of Brother Mazer. Before anybody could enter the BYU, they had to have a personal interview with him and be put on their word of honor to obey the rules of the school. And I'll describe real quickly what he figured that word of honor was. He said that you could put me in a jail cell with rock walls so thick and so high and so deep in the ground that it would seem impossible to get out. He said, but somehow, sometime, I could probably get out. But if you stood me on the floor and drew a chalk line around me and got my word of honor that I wouldn't get out of there, you'd never get me out. The UEP is a song, the words written by Lyndon Beislein, and it's going to be Phillips girls are going to sing it for us, accompanied by the guitar class next.
and farmlands. This land was made for weary plea.
I'll have John Johnson come talk to us next.
One of the things that has been real fun to notice in this project and in looking at the lives of the prophets is the similarity of spirit and character that they have and carry with them. And this comes out in their sense of humor and how much of a down-to-earth, wonderful man each one has been. In going through some of the experiences of Brother Brigham, we ran across an incident that he recorded when he was on a mission in England. They would meet with the missionaries in the city that they were in the morning and assign them to different spots in the city where they would preach on the street corners. And after a short time, the other denominations became somewhat disturbed because every time they would have one of their preachers on the streets at the same place that there was a Mormon elder, the crowds would gravitate around the Mormon elder after a short time. So the Methodists got their teeth into this, and they had a pipeline into the mayor, and maybe he was a Methodist, but anyway, they laid the problem before him, and with his influence, the city council passed a law that it was unlawful for him to preach on the street. And of course, they had the understanding, or thought they did, that the Mormons would be arrested. So the next morning, after this had been enacted, no one had heard about it. But when they met that morning, Brother Brigham records that he was impressed to have the men go home and not go on the street like they had normally done. So he gave them that advice, and after they'd had their morning meeting, they all went home, back to the mission headquarters. That day, there were 19 preachers that were arrested and hauled into city jail, all Methodists.
Now the next number is for any of us that think that our house is just a little bit too little. It doesn't quite suit our needs. The Crowded House by the Children.
Crowded House. Once there was
a farmer named Bradley. He lived with his wife Daisy in a little red house. The house had only 2 small rooms and a tiny porch on the side. The farmer and his wife thought their house was just the right size. When Dean was born, they were very happy. And when Lucy was born, they were even happier. And when baby Johanna came, they could not imagine a more wonderful family. One day, Dean brought home some puppies that Uncle Jim and Aunt Diane had given him. "Mother, may I keep them?" asked Dean. "Well, we don't have much of a place to keep them, but if you fix up a box in the corner of the kitchen, they shouldn't be too much trouble," Daisy answered. So Dean very happily fixed a place for his pets.
A few weeks later, Lucy came home with 2 soft little kittens, which she put in another corner of the tiny kitchen. All this was quite frustrating to Daisy. The puppies were friendly enough. In fact, they followed Daisy every step she took. Every time she sat down, the kittens wanted to sit on her lap. "Oh, Bradley, what shall we do? If only we could buy a larger house," said Daisy.
"We have no money to buy a larger house," said Bradley. So away he went to tell his trouble to wise Grandpa Allen. "If you do just what I tell you to," said Grandpa Allen, "everything will turn out all right." "Indeed I will," said Bradley. "First," said the old man, "you must take your rooster, hen, and chicks into the house."
So Bradley went home and he took the rooster, hen, and chicks into the house. Skunks quietly followed them. The hen and chicks had never been in a house before. They did not know how to behave. They jumped on the chairs and onto the farmer's lap. At last Bradley could stand it no longer. He went to see wise Grandpa Allen again.
Grandpa Allen and Grandma Elaine consulted for a few minutes. Then Grandpa Allen said, "Now lambs should be brought into the house." The lambs ate the curtains, slept on the bed, and chased the hen and chicks. When the farmer told Grandpa Allen about it, Grandpa said, "The hen and lambs need company. Now you must go home and take your pigs into the house." "Oh, no," said Bradley, "not the pigs." "Yes," said Grandpa Allen, "the pigs."
The pigs took up a lot of room. They were more trouble than the goat, the lamb, the hen, and the chicks together. Everywhere Daisy went to put something, there were the pigs. Besides, the lambs and the pigs did not get along well together. When Grandpa Allen heard about it, he advised that the rabbits and ducks be added to the household. Back went Bradley to council with Grandpa Allen.
"You must take the cows and calves into the house," said the old man. So Bradley went home again. The minute the cow got into the house, she sat down in the doorway. Bradley and Daisy could not get out of the house to do their chores. With the animals taking up the room, there was nothing for Bradley or Daisy to do but sit and smile lovingly at each other. At last, Bradley climbed out the window so he could go see wise Grandpa Allen. "How are you getting along now?" asked the little old man. Well, said Bradley, we are a bit crowded. Still, it could be worse. How could it be worse? Asked Grandpa Allen. Suppose my Uncle Jesse and his family should come and stay with us, said the farmer. Look who's coming up the road, laughed old Grandpa Allen. They are, they really are, cried Bradley.
There's Uncle Jesse, Debbie, Gloria, and Wendy. Now I see Miriam, Cindy, Tiffany, Marie, Sheena, Rochelle, Victoria, Marion, Joy, Stephanie, Millie, Martha, Charles, Raymond, Lauren, Boyd, and Daniel. They've also brought their dogs, cats, horses, and donkey with them. You'd better go make them welcome, said Grandpa Allen. Then he added they might help get the cow out of the door. As Bradley went to welcome them, he quoted, "Where there's room in the heart, there's room in the home." Uncle Jesse's family did convince the cow that it was better to sit against the wall than to block the door. Bradley made everyone as comfortable as possible, and Daisy passed out cookies. Back went Bradley and sat by wise Grandpa Allen.
Bradley shook his head and said, "I'm sure everything will work out fine if we can just keep sweet." Grandpa Allen and Grandma Elaine smiled at Bradley and said, "You are a very wonderful son, and we are proud of you." Just about that time, something was happening over at Bradley's house. "It looks like Uncle Jesse and his family are leaving," exclaimed Grandma Elaine. Sure enough, they'd just come for a short visit. "Now," said Grandpa Allen, "go home and take the animals back out of the house." So Bradley hurried home, and his family helped him take the animals out. Everyone had plenty of room to stretch. They could even walk about doing their work and not bump into anyone. "What a wonderful, spacious home we have," exclaimed Daisy. "It's all in learning to keep sweet," said Bradley. "And that's the truth."
That would even make my house seem big. The communications class, under Uncle Joe's directions, communications and team building class, is going to share with us the 7 habits of successful people.
When we talk about communications, and of course the main thing that we're after in trying to teach communications is the importance of relationships. And I can't imagine any principle being more important to a relationship than being able to communicate real well. And when they were talking about Uncle Roy, I was thinking that he is one of the greatest communicators that I've ever known, because he could listen. He could really listen with empathy, and he would place himself in the other person's shoes and listen really carefully. But our lives are really made up of relationships. First of all, our relationship with ourself, our relationship with God, and our relationship with each other. And we can only achieve a good relationship with each other when we have a good relationship with ourselves and the Lord. I used to think that only a crazy person would talk to himself. But I've come to the conclusion that the well people, the smart people, are the ones that really talk to themselves. And I think we ought to learn how to talk to ourselves. And I think we ought to watch our language when we do. And let's tell ourselves the good things. I believe that we're not mere human beings having a spiritual experience here. I believe that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And I personally struggle with the principles that we've talked with here in this class. There's 7 basic habits. And I feel like that these habits have helped my life a lot, and I have certainly enjoyed working with these groups of people. I guess there's been 70 or 80 people go through the class and take it. And I've felt a warmer and a more wholesome relationship with each and every one of the students. And I felt that it's helped my own life. So we do talk about the basics, and the basics, of course, to all communications is to have trust and have a character. And we talk about the character ethic. We spend quite a lot of time on the character ethic. The character ethic deals with words like integrity, humility, love, devotion, benevolence, those kind of words. And when we have those kind of words in our vocabulary, and they're in there, and they're working with them all the time, and they become a part of our life, then we can start to learn how to really communicate with other people. Because after all, what we are communicates a lot better than what we say. And so, as we move on, I'd like to end my introduction here with a quote from William George Jordan, when he said, "Into the hands of every individual is given a marvelous power for good or evil, the silent, unconscious, unseen influence of his life. This is simply the constant radiation of what a man really is, not what he pretends to be." The first 3 habits we call the habits of personal victory. And the other habits are habits of public victory. The first 3 habits are dealing with ourselves and how to get these characteristics into our lives. Habit number 1, be proactive. And Cindy will come and tell us what that means.
Be proactive. Proactivity means much more than merely taking initiative. It means, as human beings, we are responsible for our own lives. Our behavior is a function of our decisions, not our conditions. Highly proactive people recognize that responsibility. They do not blame circumstances or conditions for their behavior. Their behavior is a product of their own conscious choice. based on predetermined values.
Reactive people, on the other hand, are often affected by their physical environment, such as the weather. Reactive people are also affected by their social environment, by the social weather. They are driven by feelings, circumstances, or conditions.
Habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. This will be explained by Heidi.
To begin with the end in mind means to start with a clear understanding of your destination. It means to know where you're going so that you better understand where you are now and so that the steps you take are always in the right direction. Effectiveness, often even survival, does not depend solely on how much effort we expend, but on whether or not the effort we expend is in the right direction.
A personal mission statement based on correct principles becomes the same kind of a standard for an individual as the Constitution of the United States is for our nation. It is a personal constitution, the basis for making major life-directing decisions, the basis for making daily decisions in the midst of circumstances and emotions that affect our lives. People can't live with change if there's not a changeless core inside of them. The key to the ability to change for the better is a changeless sense of who you are, what you are about, and what you value.
Habit number 3, put first things first.
Organize and execute around priorities. If you practice effective self-management, you can become principle-centered. This means that the priorities you have set for yourself will become the most important thing to do next. This will develop inside of you the power of self-control.
Efficiency does not always mean effectiveness. Putting first things first helps you to define your own unique mission, including values and long-term goals. It helps you balance your life and give it greater context through better organization.
Now, as you see, these habits are habits of personal victories. Now we'll talk about habits that involve other people as well as yourself. And Erna and Gayleen will explain habit number 4. Think win-win.
We have committed the golden rule to memory. Now let us commit it to life. Win-win is based on the paradigm that there is plenty for everyone, that one person's success is not achieved at the expense or the exclusion of the success of others. Win-win is a belief in the third alternative. It is not your way or my way. It is a better way, a higher way.
If we can't make and keep commitments to ourselves as well as to others, our commitments become meaningless. We know it, others know it. They sense duplicity and become guarded. There's no foundation of trust. Integrity is the cornerstone of a win-win relationship.
Habit number 5 will be explained by Raymond. And Stephen R. Covey says this is the main habit of all the habits, and he's given complete full-day workshops on this one habit. Seek first to understand, and then to be understood.
This is the habit of empathic communication. Reading and writing are both forms of communication. So are speaking and listening. There are 4 levels of listening: ignoring, pretending, attentive listening, and empathic listening. When I say empathic listening, I mean listening with the intent to understand. I mean seeking first to understand, to really understand. Empathic listening is so powerful because it gives you accurate data to work with. Although it's risky and hard, seek first to understand or diagnose before you prescribe is a correct principle manifested in many areas of life. It's the mark of all true professionals. It's critical for the optometrist. It's critical for the physician. Why then wouldn't it be critical for anyone who really wanted to have a meaningful communication with another person? People want to be understood. Whatever time it takes to do that will bring much greater returns because you will be working from an accurate understanding of the problems and issues.
The next habit is habit number 6, will be explained by Vonnie and Margene. Synergize.
What is synergy? Simply defined, it means that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Synergy is everywhere in nature. If you plant 2 plants close together, the roots commingle and improve the quality of the soil, so that both plants will grow better than if they were separated. If you put 2 pieces of wood together, they will hold much more than the total of the weight held by each separately. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. 1 + 1 = 3 or more.
Valuing the differences is the essence of synergy. The mental, the emotional, the psychological differences between people. And the key to valuing the differences is to realize that all people see the world not as it is, but as they are. And this gives a wider, broader perspective of the whole picture than could be achieved by any of the individuals by themselves.
Habit number 7 will be explained by Clyde and Elaine. Sharpen the saw.
Suppose you were to come upon someone in the woods working feverishly to saw down a tree. "What are you doing?" you ask. "Can't you see?" comes the impatient reply. "I'm sawing down this tree." You exclaim, "You look exhausted. How long have you been at it?" And he replies, "Over 5 hours, and I'm beat. This is hard work." And so you inquire, "Well, why don't you sharpen the saw? I'm sure it would go a lot faster." "I don't have time to sharpen the saw, dum-dum." The man says emphatically, "I'm busy sawing."
Take time for self-renewal, physically through work or exercise, mentally through reading, visualizing, planning, and writing, socially and spiritually by service, giving and helping others, which always invigorates and enlarges character.
And so there we have the 7 basic habits of highly effective people. Be proactive, begin with the end in mind, put first things first, think win-win, seek first to understand and then to be understood, synergize, and sharpen the saw. Thank you.
This is KCCA, Colorado City, Arizona, 107.1 FM.
And you know, with upcoming conference, let's make our city sparkle by cleaning up around our homes and yards and along the streets and sidewalks. This has been a public service announcement brought to you by members of our Monday morning prayer meetings, where volunteer work service makes our town more beautiful, comfortable, and so enjoyable. This is Uncle Marilyn with you live from KCCA FM 107.1. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Marilyn.
Next, our chorus class will render 2 numbers, Sounds of the Singing School, and Music Brings Us Together.
Singing school, and the sounds you there may hear of the do, re, mi, and the ABC, and the voices ringing clear. Beat the time with accents strong, full and clear. with thrilling pleasure too, are among the many things we love to do. Gently now we sing, then rest, la, la. Beautiful triplets we merrily bring, and laugh, ha, 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 ha. O-ah-eh-ee, wah-wah, baby, stand up erect, I say. Ho, 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 ha, 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 drive dull care away. I will sing you a song of the singing soul, and the sounds you there may hear, of the do, re, mi, and the ABC, and the voices ringing clear. I will sing you a song of the singing soul, and the sounds you there may hear, of the do, re, mi, and the ABC, and the voices ringing clear. I will sing you a song of the singing soul, and the sounds you there may hear, of the do, re, mi, and the ABC, and the voices ringing clear. I will sing you a song of the singing soul, and the sounds you there may hear, of the do, re, mi, and the ABC, and the voices ringing clear. I will sing you a song of the singing soul, and the sounds you there may hear, of the do, re, mi, and the ABC, and the voices ringing clear. I will sing you a song of the singing soul, and the sounds you there may hear, of the do, re, mi, and the ABC, and the voices ringing clear. I will sing you a song of the singing soul, and the sounds you there may hear, of the do, re, mi, and the ABC, and the voices ringing do, re, mi, so, re, si, my soul, I do, so, re, si, my soul, do, re, mi, si, si, and the voices ringing clear. What's this lovely feeling stirring in our hearts when we sing in chorus strong? Joy lights a glow that grows within us till it flies on the wings of song. Music lives within us, dancing in the mind to delight us all day long. Each of us knows the joy that quickens when our voices blend in song. Music brings us together, makes us friends from the start. Music finds the joy inside and shares it with another heart. When we're far apart, the music in my heart brings you close to me each day. Then when we meet, the magic happens and we sing all our cares away. Music has a way of helping us convey all the thoughts we'd like to share. Beauty and truth and joy are blended as our voices fill the air. Music brings us together, makes us friends from the start.
Originally, this next part we had listed as teenagers, but not all of them are teenagers, so we listed it as secretaries and company. Most of the girls have helped in the office there, off and on. This number is particularly dedicated to Uncle Rulon. It's such a pretty world today. The seminary classes prepared the next number for us. We have nearly 200 students in the seminary and nearly 200 in the devotional. And we figured with the 100 students who are in the crowded house, that makes about 500 that we were talking about earlier. Master, the Tempest is Raging is a song that was written by Mary Ann Baker back in the 1870s. It was first printed in 1874, the same year that Grandpa Barlow was born. And this is one of his favorites, too. There's been several on the program that we've heard that were his favorite songs. But Mary Ann Baker was living in Chicago with her brother and sister and her parents. And the tuberculosis came through the community there, and it took the lives of her parents. And so it just left the two sisters and the brother. And then her brother got sick, and they rounded up all the money they could find and sent her brother down to Florida for treatment, where he's in a better climate. And while he was down there, he got tuberculosis and died. And the two sisters that were left were unable to round up enough means, or weren't able to figure it out to go down there and even be at his funeral or to bring the body home for some time. And so her heart was really broken, and it was like a real tempest in her life, and that's partly what inspired her to write this song. So now we'll have the seminary class sing this for us.
Master, the tempest is raging. swallow the ship where lies the master of ocean and earth and skies. They all shall sweetly obey my will. Peace, be still. Peace, be still. They all shall sweetly obey my will. Peace, peace, be still.
Mount Moriah is the temple mount in Jerusalem, and there's a lot of history there. All of the Earth's major religions consider that a sacred spot. We're going to bring you, not next on our program, but after my father talks, a story about two brothers from Mount Moriah. While they're getting that ready, we'll ask Uncle Lewis to come up and tell us a little bit about the future of Barlow University.
I'd like to speak about the concepts of Barlow University before I talk about the future. We've already heard something about the classes we're already conducting and the many things we're attempting to do. But we are a church university. We belong to and are operated by the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints under the direction of our prophet, President Roland T. Jeffs. Our concept of true education is through inspiration and the Spirit of God. And our whole university is oriented to our religion and a focus upon our prophet. We recognize that education and schooling are two separate subjects, and we are interested in education. We want to have our people become educated in the arts and sciences and skills and social graces in order to enhance their personal spiritual development and to advance the cause of the kingdom of God upon the earth. We're in this business together, all of us here, of educating ourselves and the future generations of saints. We want our people to have an abundance of spirit and mind and skill and talents. Brigham Young once said to this effect that if you want to educate a people, then send specific persons with skills or talents or potential out wherever they need to go and gain what other skills they need, come back and teach the people and share with each other all the things you know to help to educate a whole population of people. The primary responsibility of education lies squarely with the parents and the home. For the young people and even for the college-age people, it needs to be under the direction of their parents if they're not yet married, and the mature adults, of course, take upon themselves adult responsibility to gain an education. I anticipate that every mature person or young adult in our society of saints will assist and contribute in this educational endeavor as time goes on. Let's come together and learn the skills and disciplines that we need to together. In order for us to maintain a school, as we are attempting to do here, we need a special code of conduct to determine the manners, morals, the dress, the appearance, the behavior, of course, of all the people who attend this university. We hold classes in dedicated buildings on dedicated grounds, which belong to the United Effort Plan. I'd like to comment a little on what's happening at Ricks College in Rexburg, Idaho. I saw an account recently where Ricks College is now demanding that all the students who attend their college have a recommend from their bishop, almost as if they were going to go to the temple. Or they have also a recommend from their seminary teachers prior to college, and that they write an essay themselves on why they want to attend Ricks College. So they're becoming very specific. Some of the schools are aware that the state schools throughout the nation, the state universities, are a hotbed of rebellion and frustration for the young people. And there are some schools, however, like Hillsdale, Michigan has a school founded in 1844 which will not accept any federal government or state or county or city funds. It is operated totally by donations from the people and has perhaps the highest academic standards in the nation and is accomplishing great things, and there are many funds coming forth. They've found out how to have that happen. We want to do the things like the Brigham Young University was set up to do originally, but has gone so far afield from that. We are not interested in intercollegiate competition. We do not intend to institute competitive sports in our university. We do not intend to grade on the bell curve and many other things that are so typical among the universities of the day. Ours is a labor of love. The tuition will not begin to cover the costs of operating this university. Teachers and staff has already been mentioned, and all the building and maintenance are all donated time. The bishop provides facilities and overhead. We are at present accepting tangible, usable items as barter in lieu of cash for payment of tuition. And we want the people to come and gain an education, and we'll work out the details. If we need to make some contribution to them to help them get their education, that's fine. The church provides partial payment or discounts on certain classes, especially those involving health education. Rather than list the classes that we're now taking and intend to improve upon, you all have access to a spring catalog, which was at the door, and you all may be able to obtain a full catalog, which we put out last fall, to give you an idea of where we stand in this university and the things we're trying to do. But I would like to talk about some very special type of classes that our university is attempting and will be doing in the future. We're intending to set up a nursing program which will be able to meet all the state requirements in the near future. But we now already have a neurological development department and are doing some fine work, and a great deal of good is coming from that division of our university. We have right this moment outside of this building a technology department video reception studio where there are 3 different cameras taking pictures of this program, and they're being monitored, and a control operator is determining which of the cameras are going onto the tape that's being made of this production. We're going to expand this department to where we can make videos of our own quality and the kind that we need for developing and helping our people. So the computer technology and the electronics department is going to be expanded greatly. Our religion classes, we intend to expand. We already have a lot of involvement in our religion classes, but we intend to expand them, and we're going to have a historical research and resource center under the direction of Brother John Johnson. We already have a great deal there where people who are interested in Western United States history or in LDS history or in Indian history can find a great deal of information to do their particular research. Now, one of the most important things that we're going to be doing is special parenting classes and departments, for we feel that the most important job we have to do is to help people to become fine parents. And home-centered education is a coming thing as the government monopolized school system has changed in such a manner that it's becoming a disadvantage for people to attend or be a part of the public school system. It's a great money-making business, but we find that there are many things we're going to have to do different as time goes on. We intend to establish a travel and tours department and a publishing department and a lectures and lyceums department. We'd like you to come look at our building. It's been built with donated help. It isn't finished, the technology building, but it is in use, and we'll continue to progress on it. As you see by the mural before you tonight, there's some plans we have for our main administration building, and we have plans also for a performing arts building and many other buildings as the need expands. We seek the approval and inspiration of our Father in heaven for running this university. We seek the continual guidance and approval of our prophet and president, Uncle Rulon, and the day-by-day guidance of Uncle Fred and Uncle Danny. And I want to express my appreciation to all who have assisted in this great endeavor, for so many have put so much in. And I am grateful for the privilege of serving at Barlow University. Thank you.
Our thanks to Richard Barlow and Mary Johnson for the backdrop. You'll notice on the backdrop, probably already have, that it shows our administration building, how the plans are projected for right now. And they've done a good job in projecting that for us. I'd also like to thank Aunt Luella and Uncle Clyde and the others, all the mothers have helped in this program. It's been a real big job to coordinate it all. We'll go ahead now with Levi and Jesse and two brothers from Mount Moriah.
Two brothers from Mount Moriah. Many years ago there lived two brothers. In peace and happiness they shared the rich and fruitful land that their father had left them. During the warm days of early September, the brothers plowed their land. Then row by row they walked through the fields, dropping tiny seeds of wheat into the rich, dark earth. Through the autumn days of gentle rain and earth-warming sunshine, the green shoots of wheat pushed up tall and strong. All winter they grew, and in the following summer the golden harvest was ready to be reaped. Again the brothers walked together through the fields, cutting the golden wheat. Then they carefully gathered up the fallen grain and tied it into sheaves. Later, in the cool of the evening, after the first day's harvest, the sheaves of wheat were divided, share and share alike between them. Then each brother placed his sheaves in a pile and retired to his tent. The long day's work in the sun had tired Amos, the older brother, but sleep would not come to him. He tossed on his bed, thinking of the cutting of the golden harvest that day. Then his thoughts drifted lovingly to his younger brother, who had worked so hard beside him in the fields. My brother Boaz has 2 wives and 10 children, whose needs are many, he thought. I have only my wife and 2 children with few needs, and yet we divided the wheat, share and share alike. That was neither right nor fair, for Boaz and his family need more of the fruit of the land than I do. Then Amos rose in the night and went out toward the wheat field in the moonlight. He lifted some sheaves of wheat from his pile and bore them over to his brother's pile. Then he returned to his tent, and without more trouble, he fell asleep. Throughout the night, Amos slept peacefully, happy because he had given his brother some of his wheat. But it came to pass that a strange thing happened while Amos slept. In the darkness of another tent, Boaz also lay sleepless, thinking of his older brother. I have loving wives and many willing children, thought Boaz. When I grow old and can no longer plow the land or harvest the wheat, my strong sons will care for me. But Amos and his wife have 2 lovely daughters that will soon be moving on. Who will care for him in the winter of his days? My heart lies heavy, and I cannot sleep when I think of how we divided the wheat, share and share alike. That was neither right nor fair. Boaz went out to the wheat field and lifted some sheaves of wheat from his pile and bore them to his brother's pile. At dawn the next morning, just as the first sunlight was brightening the yellow wheat field into a shining gold, the 2 brothers arose. Then they stood together in silence before their piles of wheat and stared with wonder. Each of them had expected to find his pile smaller than his brother's, but the piles were the same size. Neither brother spoke of this to the other. They turned silently to the field and went again about the work of reaping and harvesting their acres of golden grain. Again, at the end of the day, they divided the sheaves, share and share alike. But again that night, each brother rose in the darkness and went forth to bear some of his wheat to his brother's pile. Thus at dawn the next day, they again found that neither pile of sheaves was any greater than the other. On the third night, both brothers arose to do again that which they had tried to do on the 2 nights before. But this time, Amos and Boaz met face to face, as each was bearing sheaves of wheat toward his brother's pile. They looked at each other in the moonlight, and they let the sheaves fall to the ground. They put their arms about each other and cried. They cried with joy, because now they understood how great was their love for one another. Then Boaz and Amos lifted up the wheat which they had dropped. They piled it in a special place on Mount Moriah, apart from the rest of the grain. Thus they would be reminded when they saw it of the love they had shown for one another.
That truly represents the spirit of the United Order. That's what Uncle Fred has told us. The next number, Go Now in Peace, a double mixed quartet.
This has been a Uzona Broadcasting production of the March program. Tune us in again soon on KCCA FM 107.1.
You'll find in your program, on the back side of where the program's printed, there's a list of acknowledgments for the seminary teachers, the university teachers, some of the donors who have helped in the building projects, and a list of the regents and other information there. You have to read when you get a little stronger light. I'm getting to where I can't read that. But our thanks to each, and thanks to Richard for helping with the lights and stage. Our last song, Shall the Youth of Zion Falter? And I'll answer that, no. And they're going to sing that for us. Thank you. It'll be the groups, the staff.
Thank you.